Good evening and welcome to Cooking with Coop. Tonight we are going to start the process of doing a zucchini yellow squash relish. It goes really good on hot dogs, black-eyed peas, anything you can think of. It's a sweet relish with a little tangy taste to it. But our zucchini and squash have really been showing out in the garden, and it's time to start processing some of them into our relish. I have already, through the food processor, processed a majority of the zucchini. As you can see, we just put it in a food processor and grated into basically just grated zucchini, and we're about to do the same thing with this white squash. Yellow squash. I do have one more zucchini to do, and as you see, I just sliced the zucchini into cubes, place it in a food processor. When we come back, I'm going to add some yellow squash to it, and I'll grind it up and show you what it looks like. Welcome back to Cooking with Coop. As you see, I have added some yellow squash along with the zucchini to our food processor. I still have a lot of yellow squash to process as well, which will go into the zucchini, which I showed you earlier. All you do is we're going to use the pulse on the food processor. We're going to continue to process the squash and zucchini until there are no chunks in it. As you see, there are no chunks. What we will do then is we will add the mixture to our pan, and we will come back in a minute and I'll show you how we start the process to make the zucchini relish. Welcome back to Cooking with Coop. As I said, welcome back to Cooking with Coop. As I told you earlier, tonight we're working on a zucchini / yellow squash relish. Years ago, I always used to do either a zucchini relish or a yellow squash relish, but then several years ago I decided, you could combine them. We really like the combination. This recipe came from my parents years and years ago, passed around New Albany actually. In fact, a good friend of mine, Junior Cornelius, told me the other night on Facebook when I'd mentioned the zucchini relish that he thinks that over 25 years ago my parents may have had zucchini relish for the first time at his house on a New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, at a New Year's Day party actually, with some black-eyed peas that Junior had fixed. So there's a debate of where the recipe came from, but I can tell you this, it's really, really good. As I told you earlier, I've already grated the zucchini and yellow squash, and the next thing is, as you see here, I have 3 big Vidalia onions. I've already grated 2 of those, and they will go into our mixture next. Show you a little trick I learned a long time ago with my food processor. The easy way to get vegetables out, because I'm having to scrape them out all the time as much as we do canned goods. You take a wooden spoon, get an older wooden spoon, and break off about 1/4 or 1/8 of the spoon and create a flat edge. All you need is a little pair of pliers. You can break that edge off, make a flat edge, and then watch how this works. The flat edge goes against the side, and whammo, it'll take the onion or zucchini right out without leaving hardly any remnants in the pan. Just something I discovered years ago on my own, and so now if you come into our house, you'll look at some wooden spoons, a lot of them will be broken off. I've now added the onion to the squash and zucchini. When we come back, I'm going to show you how we're going to finish that off. It'll go in the refrigerator overnight and be ready to start canning tomorrow. Welcome back to Cooking with Coop. We're working on that zucchini squash relish. I have now combined the zucchini, the grated squash, and the grated Vidalia onions. And as you see, this is a pretty big pot. I'm not very good at following recipes, but I do always know the size of my pot. This is a 16-quart pot. It's a little over halfway full based on just the measurements I have in my head. I know that I need to add about 1 cup of table salt. And so I've got the regular Morton's table salt here. I'm adding that to the mixture, cup of it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover it with a little lukewarm water, and it'll help to dissolve the salt. And what you want to do, according to the recipe, is you add enough water to cover the grated squash, zucchini, and Vidalia onions. As you see, that almost has it covered. I'll add a little more for good measure. This is going to be drained tomorrow before we actually process it all into the relish. But what we're going to do is we're going to take this, we're going to put it in the fridge. Don't fret over the recipe. At the end of the show, I am going to post the exact recipe in a smaller batch where y'all aren't having to make enough for the entire county. Melissa's videoing us here tonight. We do have a guest host here. One of our rabbits is taking a break inside, and he's sitting there on his litter box, and the dogs have been playing with him, so I've been having to watch my step here. But when we come back, like I said, I'm going to refrigerate this overnight, and when we come back, we'll finish this zucchini relish. We'll put it in some processed jars, and it'll be ready to eat within 1 week. All right, welcome back to Cooking with Coop. As y'all recall, we are making the squash zucchini relish. It has been in the refrigerator overnight, soaking in water and some salt. And now we're going to add the remaining ingredients, cook it, and then put it into some jars and can it and have it ready to give out. As you see, I have grated some red bell pepper, and we're going to add that to it, and I have several more that I'll need to grate. We're also going to grate some green bell pepper. We're going to grate all that up. We're going to add that to our mixture. Then we're going to come in with some apple cider vinegar. We're going to start heating it, and then we're going to add the seasonings, which I'll discuss when we come back. So I'm going to go ahead and add the bell pepper and the vinegar, get this thing going, and we'll be back shortly. Welcome back to Cooking with Coop. We got our zucchini squash relish going over here. I've got it on the stove, got it turned up to high. We're going to now start adding the ingredients. I've already added some apple cider vinegar. It takes a good bit of apple cider vinegar. Now keep in mind, I'm going to post the recipe on the smaller version of the recipe. This is about 4 times the recipe that I'll be posting because we make, of course, big batches. So one of the things, and maybe my endocrinologist won't watch this video, or my doctor, but this recipe has a lot of sugar in it. It is a sweet, tangy relish, which is really good. As you see, I just added 4 pounds of sugar to the mixture, and believe it or not, it actually calls for more. So I'm going to add some more sugar in, but it makes a very sweet, tangy mixture. This is going to scare some people, but believe it or not, it holds about 8 pounds of sugar. And then we're going to stir that in, get it going. As you see, now we have the base of our relish. Start stirring that sugar in, and it'll all melt in. And then we're going to add, this is about 1.5 cups of salt. It's just regular table salt. This is about 1 cup of celery seed, which is really good. We're going to add some dry mustard to it, and we're going to add some turmeric to it, and the turmeric will give it a nice color. We're going to stir that in, and as I told y'all earlier, I kind of add as I taste, and so, but this will get us going here. And then the final ingredient that I always add, I just got regular yellow mustard here, and what I do with the yellow mustard is there's no real amount. Once again, I kind of do it by taste. Keep in mind, this is a sweet, tangy relish. And so as you see, I just add the yellow mustard. I'll stir that in, look at it, give it a taste, and may add more. Now what we'll do is we're going to let this come to a boil and boil for 30 minutes. And so once it gets to that point, we will then ladle it into jars that have been processed here in our canner. They're just boiled. We'll add it to those, turn them upside down, they'll seal, and this will be ready to eat in a few days. Welcome back to Cooking with Coop. As you see, our zucchini squash relish has now been boiling for about 30 minutes, and it is ready for the jars. As you see, we're preparing the jars in a bath here, sterilizing those. What I do is I just put the jar on the pan. I come in here and I have a little funnel. I make sure I drain some of the liquid off because I like a pretty thick relish. So as I pull it to the side, I drain a little off. Each jar will hold about 2 cups. As you see, we got a nice, pretty yellow color relish. Get the top out. All you do with this so hot is you just screw the top on tight. As you see, there's our bottle of relish. What I do to make sure they seal is I turn them over. We'll go ahead and fill the remaining of the jars. They'll stay for a couple of years. Actually, they're canned. Really good on black-eyed peas. We love them on hot dogs. They're really good on it's really good on a lot of different things. You'll have to try some. Try this at home. It's not that hard. I do need to tell you one thing. When I said the 1.5 cups of salt, the 1.5 cups of salt is what you actually pour over the zucchini and squash when you're doing the water mixture, and you don't add that back. So I made a little salty batch this time, but I diluted it with some water and it turned out pretty good. But that 1.5 cups that I talked about at the first of the video, it actually goes over the over the squash and zucchini as you're marinating in the water. And then prior to cooking the zucchini and squash, you drain that water off and add the apple cider vinegar. I've enjoyed making the zucchini squash relish for you. Hope to see you again soon.